Hi, and good afternoon. My name is Tyler Gordon. I'm going to be your host today for this webinar on cyber threat readiness, preparing you and your business for financial and reputational ruin. Here with me today, we're going to go on an agenda. We're going to talk about the introduction of the topic, the webinar overview, and the panelists that will be speaking to us today. We're going to go over the current cybersecurity landscape. We're going to be going over recent notable cross-industry incident and lessons learned. An ethical hacker's perspective will be up next. We'll be following that up with how businesses can leverage vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. And at very last, we're going to be giving you some options on how you can be taking your first steps today on how to get all of that started. So who are we? First, we're a US-based technology service provider dedicated to giving your organization a competitive edge with our cutting-edge solutions. Our consulting-first approach spans managed IT services, Microsoft Power Platform, managed security services, cybersecurity, cloud, data and analytics, and consultancy. We also offer robust project management and governance frameworks to ensure smooth execution and adherence to best practices. And as your tech guide, we integrate deep expertise to help you innovate, accelerate, and thrive, both now and in the future. Now, here with me today are going to be the three other panelists. I am Tyler Gordon. I'll be your host. I have Sarah Bukhari as our second panelist. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I am Sarah Bukhari. I am the president at Rethinking Consulting Services. A bit about myself. I've been working in the tech industry for about 9+ years with experience spanning both in commercial and government sectors. I've had a chance to work with agencies like DHS, NHS, DOJ, focusing on things like incident response and identity and access management. I'm looking forward to sharing some of those experiences with you guys. Here at TCS, I'm all about creating a collaborative and innovative atmosphere. I love seeing our teams work together, finding new ways to support our clients, and building strong relationship and trust is really important to me. And I think it's one of the keys to our success. Outside of work, I'm a mom to a 4-year-old and a wife. I enjoy outdoor activities. And whenever I have a chance, I just kick back with a good Netflix series. I'm excited to chat with you all today and hope our session is valuable for you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that introduction. Next panelist that we're going to have up is going to be Jim Freely. Jim, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would. Thank you, Tyler. Happy to be here. My name is Jim Freely. I'm the product manager for a product called Rocket Cyber. I'm also a self-proclaimed security nerd. But at Rocket Cyber, we monitor for suspicious and malicious activity 24/7, 365 across many millions of endpoints. And from that experience, we've found a lot of different attack methods, ways threat actors have attempted to gain access to environments. And really, I'm looking forward to sharing those insights today and hopefully answering some questions along the same lines.
Thank you so much, Jim, for that introduction. All right, and our last panelist up is going to be Daniel Nasir. Would you like to introduce yourself, Daniel?
Thank you, Taylor. It's a great pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Nasir. I'm a cybersecurity consultant and penetration testing specialist with nearly 9 years of experience. I have worked globally organizations and government sectors and private industries, helping them securing their web applications, mobile platforms, and networks. So today I am going to share insights from an ethical hacker's perspective and discuss how businesses can leverage vulnerability assessments and penetration testing to stay ahead in the cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Daniel. All right. Now that we've introduced all our panelists, we'll go ahead and move on to the first topic, which is going to be current cybersecurity landscape, and that's going to be given by Jim. Jim, would you like to take over?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tyler. Let's jump on into it. If we can hit the first slide here, I'd like to talk about just the general state of cybersecurity, which, as we all know, attacks are on the rise. And if you didn't know, it's a good time to learn, because between 22 and 23, we saw 128% increase of ransomware victims. And I don't have the 24 numbers yet, but I can only imagine they are higher than that. And we've seen the average cost of a data breach at 4.45 million USD. Now, even if you look at a bell curve, and that's the top of the bell curve, look all the way to the left, 1/10 of that is still $500,000. there are very few small to medium-sized businesses or even mid-market businesses that can take a $500,000 hit and continue to operate. And that doesn't even factor in the reputational damage that'll come with something like a data breach, especially if you lose customer data and, not to mention GDPR fines and fees and so on and so forth. And I want to stress the fact that the SMB, the MME markets are now in scope for these threat actors. In years past, we only saw the enterprise, the Fortune 500 type companies being the targets of these attacks. But that's shifted. And the reason that shifted is, one, smaller companies are the path of least resistance for these threat actors. They're finding that they can still squeeze them for $1 without having to jump through all the hoops. That is, the defense of a Google or a Facebook or something along those lines. The other thing is cyber insurance. Many companies are picking up cyber insurance and they're able to make these ransomware extortion payouts. And unfortunately, just because one company does it doesn't mean that you can, but they're still going to come after you just the same because they're assuming that you can. So the rate of attacks is increasing for many reasons, but I believe those two are some of the most prolific. And we can move on from this slide here. So cybercrime is GDP in 2025. I just thought this was an interesting stat, but it really goes to show how profitable it is. You look at GDP for USA, it's 27 million, just about. China, it's about 18, just under 18 million. Cybercrime, I'm sorry, not million, $trillion. Cybercrime is 8 trillion, including profits and damages that these cybercrime organizations are responsible for. That is almost quadruple the GDP of Canada, 2 trillion. So it's really fascinating how impactful these groups are. And I think the data shows that they are not losing steam in this race. They are continuing to execute attacks. Their profit margins are continuing to grow. The scope of who they can attack and extort money from is growing. So we can only anticipate that these attacks will continue along the same trajectory. We can go along to the next slide, please. So top cyber threats today. I wanted to pick out a couple of things that you may not have heard in other places, some nuanced items that we're seeing specifically from my role as product manager of Rocket Cyber and the endpoints that we're monitoring. So the first threat that we have here is the initial access brokers. And what these guys do is they will compromise an environment and they will wait. They won't execute ransomware. They won't steal information. They simply want to gain entry into your environment so they can sell that off to the highest bidder. And then somebody will buy that access and then execute ransomware. And this is worrying because it shows that these threat actors are becoming more specialized in their role. And in any evolutionary textbook or whatever it might be, when you look at societies, the more advanced they become, the more specialized certain industries are. And we're seeing this with these ransomware groups. They are auctioning off their ability to gain access, and they're certain companies are buying that access and doing the easy part, which is just encrypting the data, right? This is difficult to detect because when they gain entry, they're not doing those noisy techniques. They're not stealing data. They're not turning off the internet. They're not deleting files. You really don't know they're there unless you have security products and tools in place, or you've taken preventative measures to stop them from getting there in the first place. So it's difficult to detect unless you're doing the right things. So let's go to the next emerging threat, which is the token theft or token hijacking. For anybody who's not as technical here, a token is what allows you to stay logged into a website even after you close the browser or you turn off your computer or whatever it may be. If you sign into Google, you close the browser, you reopen it, you're still in Google, you're still signed in, you don't have to enter your username and password again, and that's because you have a token. That token tells Google, hey, this person is logged in, they don't need to re-authenticate every time they refresh. Token hijacking or token theft allows the attacker to steal that token. And that's not good because when the token's stolen, they bypass all the security controls that are associated with that sign-in process. So if we can go to the next slide, we have a diagram that shows how this happens. And really, it typically begins, that's one slide too late, but it's still relevant because it typically begins with phishing, right? The phishing email is sent to the end user, or the end user, it goes to a bad website. Either way, they end up somewhere that is attempting to steal that token. They typically don't even have to enter their username and password. It may ask them to say, yes, do you approve this, or some small prompt. But regardless, the user goes to a bad website and the token is stolen and given to the attacker, or they take it rather. Once the attacker has that token, they can bypass two-factor authentication. They don't need your password. They don't need to do anything. They're just injecting that token into their web browser, and they are you. They have your account. And this is scary and difficult because there's no log. They didn't sign into your account. It doesn't show that they accessed that resource from a certain place that they shouldn't have because they never signed in. That process was never there. So really, we have to focus on one, stopping this from happening in the first place, and doing detection after authentication, looking for bad behaviors, looking for risky activities. So that leads me into the next slide, which is stopping phishing. Phishing is very prolific. It has been and it continues to be, and that's because human error is unavoidable. No matter how many security controls you implement, no matter how many products you implement, if you don't train your end users and if you don't protect them as best you can from these phishing attacks getting to them in the first place, they will continue to be the single point of failure and are consistently the cause of these cyber incidents. You can see 90% of these incidents begin with phishing for those reasons. And on the next slide, we have a couple facts about AI. AI has been instrumental in improving the efficacy of phishing. I myself use AI a lot. I use AI to, I'll input a paragraph and I'll say, make this make sense. Make this worded better, make this sound better. And they do the same thing with their phishing emails. They say, here's a template. Make this more convincing. Make this more urgent. Make a user want to take action on this. And these AI companies, they say that they have security controls in place to stop people from misusing their programs, but it's very easy to bypass. And there's many different resources that have shown you can bypass those security controls and still get these AI tools to output a phishing email or a phishing template for you. And on the next slide, you'll see that AI is not going anywhere. I don't think we even need to mention this, but as we look at this from a data perspective, the AI chip sales are exponentially growing. They're not going down at any time soon, and you correlate that with the increase of usage of AI. We can only assume the attackers are following the same trend, and they are continuing to use AI in their attack methods, and we will have to respond accordingly. So, lastly, on the next slide, we have lastly on the phishing topic, I'll say we have spear phishing. And for those unaware, spear phishing is very venomous, for lack of a better term. It is targeting a specific individual or group of individuals by using information in their messaging that makes it seem more legitimate. For example, if you typically buy things from Amazon, a generic phishing email may say, hey, you purchased something, here's your receipt number, but it may not specify a vendor. Whereas a phishing email could say, hey, this is from Amazon. It could include your name in the email. It could include your company name. Another good one is company resources. If you use a specific HR system, accounting system, finance system, they will use that company information and send the phishing email to you with that. So it seems more legitimate. It's personalized to you. And of course, AI accelerates the creation of these by learning about the user and then creating the template based off of what it knows. So spear phishing is definitely something to watch out for, and definitely convincing, and it's got me through the training spear phishings once or twice. So if we go to the next slide, bottom line, this stuff is not going away. It's increasing in frequency, sophistication, damage. It's expanding on all fronts, right? So if we go to the next slide, I think we even have some better statistics to back that up. The ransomware groups, we talked about the increase in specialization. We're also seeing an increase in the ransomware group activity. Now, this is important because the groups are taking accountability for certain attacks, but when you're attacked by a ransomware group, they often do something called double exfiltration. I believe it's double extortion. Sorry, similar words. But double extortion, they're not just encrypting your data, they're also threatening to publish it, so that if you don't pay them, not only are you going to lose your files, but you're also going to be facing regulatory fines and fees and litigation and everything else. So the ransomware groups are particularly potent, and they're measured by how often they're posting on these websites, taking responsibility, taking credit for these attacks. And we've seen an 81% increase in those victims being claimed online over the past year, 22 to 23. So last slide for me before I pass it to Tyler here, we have a distribution of the attacks by industry. I just thought this was interesting to see where things sit. Even if you're at the bottom of the list, pharmaceuticals, household products, energy, something like that, you're not out of scope. It's just less voluminous, right? But you got the typical ones at the top: manufacturing, services, education. It's about what we'd expect to see. So you know what? I've been rambling for a while. Tyler, I'm going to pass it back over to you before I continue on here.
Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate all that insight that you shared with us on the attacks by the industry. A quick question, if you have enough time for us, really quick. I personally expected the attacks for like media and telecommunications to be on top, but manufacturing, it looks like it's the heaviest hitter by a long shot. Do you have any insight to why that could be?
I have some guesses. It's difficult to say exactly why. First and foremost, manufacturing tends to be a bit slow to adopt security controls. They're typically more, I don't want to say old-fashioned, but slower to pick up the change. The other thing is manufacturing is sometimes a means to an end. You have manufacturers that build certain items or products or whatever it might be for government entities. These could be nation state actors trying to get into a government resource through means of the manufacturer. So there's a myriad of different reasons, but not implementing your security products is definitely my first guess there.
Absolutely. I can see how no matter what industry you're in, that could absolutely not benefit you whatsoever. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to move on to our next topic and recent notable cross-industry incident and lessons learned. And here to speak with that is going to be Sarah.
All right, thank you, Tyler. All right, we're gonna delve into the case study section of our webinar. To optimize our time, we'll focus on 2 notable ransomware attacks. All right, our first case study. Next slide, please, Tyler. All right, as you can see on the screen, our first case study talks about a big industry giant that provides application and services to automotive industry. This particular ransomware case has been pretty interesting. It's fascinating how just with one click, it may have brought down almost 15,000 clients. So pretty much target one company, and the threat actor can cripple the major part of the industry. In this attack, Black Sweet Ransom Group went with attacking their SaaS platform. The fallout was major, which caused their IT systems, phones, and applications to go down. At first, it was thought that the customer data had been stolen during the attack. However, recently, the company confirmed that after a third-party review, it was informed that the data was not exfiltrated, which is, better news that the data was not in the hands of the threat actors. A little bit overview and process of this cyber attack. The attackers gain initial access through phishing campaigns, the best one, that they love it, by tricking employees into divulging credentials or installing malwares. Once they infiltrate into the system, they then conduct extensive reconnaissance to map out the environment. They identify critical systems and locate sensitive data. They exploit weak permissions and unpatched software vulnerabilities to escalate their privileges and eventually gain administrative access, which then allows them to deploy ransomware and encrypt critical data. This particular ransomware group, Black Sweet, it's a private ransomware group that targets both large and small and mid-sized enterprises. They don't seem to focus on any specific industry or type. We've seen in past that different ransomware groups have capabilities to encrypt only Windows-based operating system. However, Black Sweet has payloads that are compatible with both Windows and Linux-based operating system. These payloads are then delivered through phishing emails or third-party tools like Metasploit and others. We're gonna talk a little bit about high level what the financial impact was and what were some of the non-financial impacts. So as far as financial impact is considered, it was reported that the company paid $25 million in ransom, and the attack likely cost its clients around $600 million in direct losses. Huge amount over there. The other impacts included business interruption due to significant downtime affecting, sales, maintenance, and other business operations, increased cost and operational cost, expenses for recovery, overtime, payments for employees. You're talking about engaging a forensic firm, a restoration and recovery firm, and if that's even covered by insurance, eventually ending up paying higher insurance premiums. Then comes the reputational damage, and that's, loss of customer trust and potential long-term impact on the brand reputation. Like Jim was talking about, legal regulatory actions as well is another impact that the companies have to face. We'll now move on to our case study number 2 as we wrap this up. Hey. So our next case study focuses on a telecommunication company with about 7,500 customers that were affected by this attack, which was detected this year and was claimed by a ransomware group called RansomHub. In this attack, the compromised data includes PII. So we're talking about social security numbers, credit scores, names, addresses, and other personal information. The attacker pretty much exploited a network vulnerability, again, using phishing emails to gain initial access, and then escalating their privileges through unpatched software vulnerabilities and other vulnerabilities that existed in the environment. And then use tools like Mimikatz and others to laterally move within the environment, which basically help them eventually to deploy ransomware with advanced encryption algorithms. This ransomware encrypted critical data, making it inaccessible for the company to until the ransomware was paid. There has been a joint advisory by FBI, CISA, and HHS regarding RansomHub, which is a variant of ransomware as a service. They surface as a significant threat and have already affected about 200 plus victims across various infrastructure sectors, including financial services, telecommunication, and healthcare. They function as a ransomware service model, which is pretty interesting, as it enables their developers to provide pre-coded ransomware to affiliated who then use it to attack various targets. So you don't even need to know the whole process and write down the code and everything. It's sort of like pre-made. You just go ahead and get it from them, and then go on your way and attack companies. This strategy really allows RansomHub to attract affiliates, including individuals that were previously linked to other ransomware groups, and thereby broadening its influence and reach. While the direct financial impact was not explicitly disclosed, the attack caused significant operational disruption and non-financial impacts, just customer data exposure, loss of customer trust, and regulatory scrutiny. We will now move on to the next slide. Tyler? All right, we're going to talk a little bit about lessons learned from these case studies. I want to specifically focus on phishing attacks, as you saw that both of these case studies sort of potentially started with phishing. So it's important to emphasize a little bit on how we can mitigate the risk of phishing attacks. The importance of security awareness training. Regular training, I mean, the key word here is regular training, really helps employees to recognize phishing attempts. We want to make sure that they are ready, they're educated, they know what a phishing email would look like, even in advanced phishing emails, because these threat actors are getting smart every day, and we want to be able to make sure that our employees are able to detect suspicious emails and links. Next is MFA, so multi-factor authentication. It's a added layer of extra security, which makes it harder for the threat actors to gain access to the account if even the credentials are compromised. This involves using 2 or more verification methods, such as the password and an application-based code. There are different type of authentication methods when it comes to MFA. It's important to choose the right type of MFA. And I mean, the most common everybody probably has used at some point is the SMS one where you get a code. Then there is an application-based MFA where you have an authenticator app and the code keeps changing every 30 to 60 seconds. All those MFAs, they can be bypassed. There are techniques and ways to bypass those. However, there's one type of MFA, which is a FIDO-based MFA, that has not been bypassed so far. So if your company does have capability to enforce and implement FIDO-based MFA, that's what you should go for. And if there's a choice between SMS versus an application-based MFA, I would definitely go for the application-based MFA, as the SMS-based MFAs are easy to intercept. Next, what companies can do is they look at the email security protocols as well. Making sure spam filter and email authentication protocols such as the MARC, DKIM, and SPF are enabled because they reduce the phishing emails reaching to inboxes. These protocols help in verifying legitimacy of email senders and prevent email spoofing, which is very common, especially with the business email compromise on the rise. Next, I would like to say that encourage your employees to report suspicious emails immediately. A lot of times, employees are hesitant to report just because they have accidentally clicked on those emails. So just encourage them that it's a good practice to inform the responsible stakeholders about an accident that has happened. Having a clear incident response plan that it allows organizations to quickly address and mitigate phishing attacks and minimize the potential damage. We'll next discuss several other critical measures that organizations can take to enhance their cyber posture and cyber hygiene. All right, thanks, Tyler. So robust data recovery plan. Organizations should maintain multiple copies of sensitive data in a physically separate, secure location to ensure recovery in an event of an attack. This step is really crucial because it minimizes downtime and data loss. We have observed this issue with many of our ransomware clients here at TCS that while they have all the necessary documents in place, including really nice detailed network diagrams, asset inventories, and other policies and procedures, they often have those resources stored on their machines or servers that are targeted and subsequently encrypted during the attack. And really at this point, they're of no use. Therefore, storing them separate from your primary network and storing them securely, whether it's a cloud or it's a physical location, is highly encouraged and come really handy in an event of an attack. Let's talk about a little bit about strengthening your password policy. So accounts with password logins, particularly administrative accounts, should adhere to NIST standards for password management. This includes account lockouts, avoiding password reuse, complex passwords, and basically employing hashes. The password hashes should be stored in a secure way. Next, we're going to talk about network segmentation, and this is also very important. That we've seen a lot of times that clients have a huge network, and there is definitely room to have separated, segmented network for security purposes, to control traffic flow and restrict sometimes the threat actors when they are in your system to restrict their movement and the spread of ransomware. So utilizing monitoring tools, good EDR would do the job to detect an abnormal traffic is also crucial for early detection and response. Next, we're going to talk about software updates and patches. So, we're all well aware that all these vendors, they do release security patches time to time based on the evolving cyber threat environment that we live in. So making sure all your operating systems, softwares, firmwares are up to date. One of the most cost-effective measures to protect against ransomware attacks. Prioritizing patches for known vulnerabilities in publicly facing system is particularly very important. And you got to make sure that the publicly facing systems are also segmented separately, so that way no threat actor can actually use or utilize that door to get into your internal network. Secure logging practices. So organizations should follow best practices for being able to detect suspicious logins. This may include reviewing your domain controllers. That's the command and control, which is where we run everything from. Your servers and workstations for any new or unrecognized accounts. Auditing your users is important, especially with admin privileges. Also, you can also audit your group object policies, because we've seen a lot of times once these threat actors have access to the environment, they have access to domain controllers, they often use GPOs to push out their ransomware. Whether they're using a specific tool, they'll use the GPOs to push it out quickly onto the environment. So auditing those group policy is also crucial and should be done periodically. Maintaining regular backup. This may be the last point of this slide, but it's very important, especially once you have been under a ransomware attack. The only thing that pretty much saves you is the backups. So you should ensure that your backups are kept offline as well and are regularly maintained and tested. And I use this word tested because there have been scenarios where companies are confident that they have really good backups, they're viable, but when we start testing them, they are not viable at all. Which is why they either end up rebuilding their environment or end up buying a decryptor from the threat actor to gain their data. So it's essential to make sure these backups are tested and that they're encrypted and are immutable to protect against alteration and deletion by ransomware threat actors. There's a strategy, it's called 3-to-1 rule. It has been a key guideline. It emphasizes on the importance of keeping multiple copies of your data. It's a simple strategy which says that you should have 3 copies of your data, 2 stored on different type of media, and one copy kept offsite. So with that, I'm going to just say that the broader implication for the industry is it's pretty clear that the robust cybersecurity defense is no longer just optional, but it's essential. And companies must prepare not only for preventing such attacks, but also for responding effectively when they occur. And we should really focus on more proactive cybersecurity rather than more reactive, which is where we're still at. Tyler, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was a great introduction for what we had going on here. I have one quick question if you have a little bit more time for us. One of the things that I was curious about is how often should a company be maintaining that backup? How often should they be initiating one? Oh, hey, sorry, Sarah, you seem to be muted.
I am so sorry. It really depends on the business need. However, I do recommend that if it's a critical data, then we should back up daily. We have clients who back up their M365 environment 3 times a day so that their emails are safe and they have all their OneDrive documents and SharePoint, all those files safe. But again, it really depends on the business need of the specific organization. However, like I said, critical data should be backed up daily, if not weekly.
Thank you so much. You can never have too many backups. That's what I've been told. That's what I believe. You can never have too many. All right. So moving on to our next topic, we have an ethicals hacker perspective. And to talk about that, we have our panelist, Daniel. Daniel, would you like to begin?
Hey everyone. Well, being an ethical hacker for a quite long time, I would really like to share some valuable insights from the perspective of an ethical hacker. So we will explore how ethical hacking works, why it is crucial, and what are the key steps involved in, and some experiences. So let's start with the fundamentals. So let's start with the basic. What is ethical hacking? Ethical hacking, often referred to as white hat hacking, like it's a practice of intentionally breaking into the systems, but legally. So the goal is to identify and mitigate the vulnerabilities before the hackers can exploit them. Essentially, ethical hackers use the same techniques as cyber criminals, but with the organization permissions. Um, so the difference lies in the intention, basically. We hack to protect and not to harm. So what is the role of an ethical hacker? Ethical hackers are indispensable to the modern society. Their role is to uncover the weaknesses before attackers do. So, by simulating the real world attacks, they test the resilience of an organization's defenses under the controlled situations. So, this proactive approach not only strengthens the security systems but prevents the costly data breaches, data theft, and other harmful consequences. So, in general, ethical hackers help organizations to stay ahead of the evolving cyber threats. Taylor, next slide, please. So what is a life cycle of an of ethical hacking? So it's kind of a structured process that allow us to systematically uncover the vulnerabilities. So this process can be broken into the three main stages. Number one, reconnaissance, number two, exploitation, and number three is reporting. So first, we gather intelligence on the target systems or network. This step help us understand the environment and identify the potential entry points. So once we identify the vulnerabilities, we attempt to exploit them. So the goal is to see how far these weaknesses can be pushed under the safe conditions, of course. So this shows us the real impact of an attacker might have. So in reporting, finally, we compile our findings, providing the detailed documentation that includes the vulnerabilities, the methods used to exploit them, and most importantly, the recommended mitigations. So this kind of report serves a roadmap for the organizations to improve their security. Taylor, next slide, please. So I would like to share one of my case study, which was related to a ride-hailing application. I was trying to test their customer-facing application, and which was getting quite popular in the different regions of the world. So what I did is I just test the customer-facing applications, but there was not any major issues were found there. So as an ethical hacker, what I thought is I just went to the company office with my car and registered as a driver on that ride-hailing application. So that's how I got the driver's portal of that application. So then I took some time and just test the driver's portal because developers have just less focus on the driver's applications because the customer facing application was the priority mainly. So while testing the driver's portal, I was able to find 1.4 million users of data along with their locations, their ID cards, their email addresses, phone numbers, and even their live locations of the drivers as well. So after some time, I just compiled these things in a report and just submit to the company. But unfortunately, they ignored that. And exactly after 1 year, their whole data got breached. And they have been sold by their competitor. And they bear a very huge loss of their reputation, unfortunately. So this is how you bear these things when you have less focus on the security related things. Taylor, can you please move? So another case study of mine is related to a major airline of the United States. I was testing an airline, and as I mentioned, the reconnaissance is the main part, is the first step of the ethical hacking. So while reconnaissance, I just found the cabin crew portal, which was less secure than the flight scheduling portal. So after testing that cabin crew portal, I was able to bypass the authentication mechanism and just tried some SQL injection vulnerabilities and just get into the portal and found that there was all the information and data related to all the cabin crews of that airline. So their passport copies were there, their ID cards, their phone numbers, their email addresses, even their flight scheduled information were there. And the most important thing, I was able to change the flights of the cabin crew just with a single click. So when you just give less focus on the non-user facing, non-customer facing applications, it can be a huge chaos for the companies. Taylor. So how businesses can leverage the VAPT assessments? Like, what is VAPT basically? So let's break down the difference between the VA and PT. VA is more like of finding the weak spots in the systems, like identifying the potential cracks without trying to break anything. Like it's crucial for the prevention. Like on the other hand, penetration testing simulates a real attack, actually trying to exploit those weak spots. So it's about understanding, like what if a hacker gets in, and preparing for the worst case scenario. When we look at the methodology, VA uses like automated tools to flag the vulnerabilities, while PT combines automation with the manual techniques. So, Taylor, next slide, please. So, what is the benefits of the VAPT? Like, why does this matter? Because reputation is everything. One data breach can wipe out the years of hard-earned trust with the customers, obviously. So VAPT helps you avoid these disasters before even they happen. So it's also about the saving money. Fixing a hole before it's exploited is so much cheaper than dealing with the chaos after a breach. Like, think about it. What is easier, plugging a leak or cleaning up a flood? So that's how it works. And finally, compliances. We have all got the rules to follow, like GDPR, PCI DSS, and ISO 27001 and other compliances. So the VAPD helps ensuring you staying compliant, avoid fines, and the keeping your organization safe. Mainly if it's if your organization is a financial institution or any insurance company or some company which where you have to follow the compliances. So Taylor, can you please change the slide? All right. So what's the best practices for implementing the VAPT? How do you make this work? So start with the regular testing. Security is not one and done. So new vulnerabilities pop up all the time. So you need to stay on the top, like quarterly or after any changes in the infrastructure, whether it's code, design, or any network. Second, don't just focus on the outside threats, like internal assessments are just as important. So whether it's an insider threat or human error, you have to cover every angle. So lastly, work with experts. Cybersecurity is constantly evolving, and we have professionals who live and breathe this stuff can make difference, all the difference. So they'll help you stay ahead of the threats and sleep a little easier at night. So with these simple steps, you can stay ahead and protect your reputation and ensure that your business thrives in an ever-changing digital world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for your time and the information on all the penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. One question that I actually have for you, if you have a little bit more time, is how often would you say there's new ways of vulnerability assessment and penetration testing? How often are we finding new ways on how to do that kind of thing?
Taylor, we find these things all the time. Like every hour, you will check that every like new single vulnerabilities and research work comes up in the on the internet. So you always have a lot of things to read, to research, and to study to find the new potential vulnerabilities in the applications or networks.
All right. Thank you so much for that insight. Well, let's go ahead and we'll go move on. It's going to be the last thing that I have for you on taking your first step. But before I even get to that point, I think I'd like to give about 20 seconds to each of our panelists here to give any closing remarks if they'd like to share anything from here on out. All right. Jim, do you have anything that you would like to add?
I think I'll just echo what Daniel said about prevention is key. You know, when we think about cybersecurity and you relate it to a bank, the bank has gates and it has locks and it has doors and motion detectors and everything else. Making sure people can't get in is step one. And in cybersecurity terms, that is making sure you're running your vulnerability scans, you're patching anything that is identified, you're doing your penetration tests and doing the corresponding remediative work. So make sure they can't get in first and then worry about the reaction later. I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you so much. Now to our next panelist, Sarah, do you have any closing remarks you'd like to add?
Sure. First, I'd like to thank everybody for joining today's session. I hope you guys find this informative. Just remember that in the ever-evolving landscape of cyber threats, staying informed and prepared is your best defense. The threat actors will come up with new techniques. There are going to be new vulnerabilities that are going to be found every day. We just got to make sure that we're informed and prepared in order to combat with those threat actors.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that closing remark. And last but not least, our panelist, Daniel, do you have any closing remarks on anything that was shared earlier?
To wrap things up, remember that cybersecurity is not just a technical requirement. It's about the protecting what matters most, your business, your customers, and your reputation. Like implementing VAPT is a smart way to stay ahead of the threats and ensure the peace of mind, actually. So thank you very much, everyone. Um, it's good to see you guys. Looking forward to see you again.
All right. Thank you so much for that closing remark, Daniel. All right. So last but not least, I got a little surprise for you guys today on how we can take your first step into protecting your business against that financial and reputational ruin, the whole thing we're talking about today. So here I have a complimentary cybersecurity consultation for you guys. Now with that, it's going to be a high level assessment to safeguard your business, right? Now, with this consultation, we're going to have a structured evaluation with CIS top 18 controls. Now, with those, we're going to evaluate your security posture with a customized questionnaire. So it'll be a little bit more unique. Now, we're also going to focus on areas that include access control, incident response, and data protection. And then last but not least with that, we're also going to be able to benchmark your practices against the industry standards. As we touched on earlier, new ways are coming up every single day for vulnerability. Now, what's coming up next with that is going to be the comprehensive OSINT assessment. Now we're going to leverage the open source intelligence to assess the risks. We're going to be using identifying potential data exposure through public sources and the dark web. And then with all of that, we're going to be able to use that to gain insight into your organization's visibility to potential attackers. Now, I'm going to have a link that gets put into the chat. Please hit that link so we can have you sign up for the complimentary consultation, so we can absolutely have you take the first steps towards fortifying your cybersecurity and protecting you against that reputational ruin. Thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate you joining us for this webinar today. And we really hope that you took a lot of good things from it and you have a great rest of your day following this. Thank you.